Thanks. All right, Mr. Clerk, I believe I see a quorum, so why don't we go ahead and get the roll call started?
Okay, Councilmember Betts,
I am present.
Councilmember Dunbar,
I am present.
Councilmember Garza,
Here.
Councilmember Hussein. Is Councilmember Hussein here? Not seeing Councilmember Hussein. Councilmember Jackson.
Councilmember Hussein just zoomed
He
in.
just arrived.
Okay, just arrived. Okay. Councilmember Jackson.
Stuck in the elevator.
Not seeing Councilmember Spatfor.
Present.
Zoom
Councilmember
did have
Spitzley.
an update.
Oh, great. Councilmember Spitzley
Yes.
is here, and Councilmember Wood.
Here.
Okay, and going back to Councilmember Jackson, has he joined us? Not quite yet.
Not yet.
7 members present, a quorum. Councilmember Jackson is absent.
Thank you. We'll keep an eye out for him. Next item is meditation and pledge of allegiance. And before we do that, I just want to thank everybody for hanging in there. We had to get our budget stuff done at Committee of the Whole, so apologize for the late start today. So our meditation and pledge of allegiance, is there anybody that council, the mayor, or the clerk's office wishes we keep in our meditation? Councilmember Spitzley and Mayor Shore.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh, God, I've just messed it up again. I lost my screen. I apologize. It's only been a month that we've been doing this, okay?
2.
Yeah, 2 months. All righty. But on a serious note, the COVID-19 is taken, a toll on everybody. And I just wanted to, and I know probably the mayor is going to say the same thing, but last week, former Senator Morris Hood died from complications of the COVID, and I'd ask you to keep his family in our thoughts. And also, my great uncle was in a coma, for a medically induced coma, for the past 4 weeks, and on a ventilator, and was released from the hospital yesterday. And so, it is a horrible thing, but I would ask you to keep those people in your prayers. And keep everybody else who's dealing with it. You don't know. My next door neighbor had COVID, and I wondered why their grass was so high. I was going to go beat on their door, and come to find out, they're mowing their lawn, and he's telling me that one of his roommates had COVID-19, and they were quarantined. My neighbor 2-3 doors down works at the Meyer warehouse. Need I say more? He had COVID, and so it touches a lot of people, and so just continue to say prayers and keep these people uplifted. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Councilmember Wood, then Councilmember Garza as well with hands up.
Were you going to the mayor? I know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't want to jump over council members. I wanted to recognize former Senator Mo Hood, very good friend of mine, someone who taught me a lot when I was in the House and the staff, and we used to go bowling with Mo here in Lansing. So I do want to remember him. It was very sad. Also, Steve Cook, the former president of the Michigan Education Association, Lansing teacher, resident, he passed away as well. So I hope we will keep them both in mind, in addition to all of the other COVID affected individuals.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, President Spatafor. If we could remember Al Salas, he lost his brother to COVID this past week. So if we could keep him in our prayers, so that would be Al and Gina Salas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Council President. I too would like to say, keep everybody in their prayers. COVID-19, this is definitely a uncharted water we're in right now. It's unprecedented, like everybody else is saying. So if you can, call a retiree, call a family member that may be sitting at home. Like Patricia Spitzley said, You know, I mean, if you notice someone's grass is getting long, you know, maybe knock on the door, make sure they're okay. Keep your social distancing. But please, if you could, you know, take a couple minutes out of your day and call a retiree or elderly. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see other hands, so we will. Oh, Councilmember Spitzley has more.
All right. I also want you to ask if we keep Marianne Prince in our thoughts and prayers. I saw her in Myers. Meyer. My son would be horrified that I said Myers. I saw her in Meyer earlier this week, and that she's been ill. She's been suffering. She had a reoccurrence of cancer, and so if we keep her in our thoughts and prayers, I'd appreciate it as well.
Thank you very much. So if you all would please join us in a moment of meditation. Thank you. Now the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We've finally gotten good at that, so appreciate it.
Okay, we do not have proceedings for approval, so we are to a special ceremony presentation, the Ingham County Health Department.
Now, it is my understanding that our health director, Linda Vale, stuck around until about 7:35 and then had to get on to something else. So I think we've lost her for the evening, but we will invite her back on June 8th, and we'll move heaven and earth to make sure that meeting starts on time to get that presentation up before the public.
Okay, then that takes us to comments by the council members and the city clerk.
Sure. Catching you guys off guard there with the timing. So I'll give you just a few seconds to raise your hands if you have additional comments this evening. Seeing none from council members, Mr. Clerk.
I don't believe I have any announcements, so I will announce that we are to community event announcements. If there's any members of the public that have a community event, you can have 1 minute to tell us the details. And
I'll give you 20 more seconds to raise your hands here on that.
And you raise your hands, *9 on a phone, Option Y on a Mac, Alt Y on Windows, and on a
tablet, you just push participants and then raise hand. And we are at time, so thank you, Mr. Clerk.
All right, then we're to registration or sign up for public comment on legislative matters, and legislative matters will include the resolutions for action, which does include the city budget, as well as the 2 ordinances for passage. Again, raise your hand for that. And while you are raising your hands, we are to the mayor's comments.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So I had a few just updates to give. I know we put out the press release, our parking folks did, but parking enforcement will be resuming. That is allowed under the executive order. So it's been in just about every media resource, and we put out the release and put it on social media. I want to make sure everyone knows. Today, as of today, all of our garages are open. So anybody who has a parking pass can park in the garage. The max stay enforcement resumed today. So if you parked downtown more than 2 hours, don't, because now we'll be enforcing that. The meters will be resumed enforcement June 1st, right after the Memorial Day holiday. Same with the overnight parking ordinance, which was passed. And I want to make sure council members knew that in the time when it was not, we were able to work out a low income rate. So I know that was a request that came from council. We actually worked that out. So there will be parking permits available once again for overnight parking with a low income rate similar to the way CART is done. And that was all in the press release, and that also will resume June 1st. So June 1st, all of our parking is back online. We do want to make sure we're helping out, businesses. We reduced, I know we talked about this at council, We reduced the minimum for the app from an hour to 15 minutes. So now people can just park, do their 15 minutes, pick up their food or whatever, and then leave. So they don't have to worry about paying for an hour if they're using the app. So we did all of that and we announced that. We announced a whole variety of events that were canceled. Usually we like to talk about events happening, but here now with COVID world, we're announcing cancellation of events. We're very disappointed to have to cancel a Memorial Day ceremony. We're hoping to do something without the public, but the executive order does not allow for gatherings at all. We asked the governor's office and they said it's not allowed. So the Memorial Day event is canceled. Walking Wednesdays are postponed. Concerts in the park, we're going to continue to reevaluate. If there's a way to do a safe concert and gatherings are allowed, we'll look at it for later in the summer, but at this point, any of them are postponed. The mayor's family river walk and run is now virtual. So if you want to continue to, if you want to do the mayor's river walk, we'll send you the shirt, or you can come pick up the shirt and then you walk your neighborhood. The mayor's river walk in your own neighborhood, and the mayor's virtual run. We'll send you a bib, you print it out, and you go run your favorite route and then post the time. This is the new reality. So we're trying to keep these events, but we're trying to let them people do it according to the executive order at their own homes and in their neighborhoods. The Fairy Tale Festival at Turner Dodge for June 20th and 21st, canceled. July 4th parade and fireworks, canceled. And then the Mayor's Annual Senior Activities Fair, we're saying postponed because we'd still like to try and do something, but we don't know if that's going to be possible or not. So we're saying postponed, and then we'll continue to update, but you just don't want to put a lot of seniors in one place, in a closed gym, if we don't want to put anybody at risk. So postponed, but we'll continue to reevaluate. Both Hunter and Morris Park pools are going to be closed this summer. The pool at the Schmidt Center, we're going to continue to reevaluate because it's an indoor pool. So if we can open it at some point, we will, but only when it's safe. Swim lessons are canceled. Pavilions are canceled until at least after July 6th. Summer camps we're still working on. The tennis program is not going to be held, the Todd Martin program. And then the community centers will offer virtual classes and programming. So I wanted to make sure to say all that. Sorry for taking so long. I do want to announce the Lansing schools have now provided over 500,000 meals to Lansing residents. So kudos to our school districts who continue to knock it out of the park. I know several council people have asked about yard waste. Our folks are doing their very best to pick it up. As of this morning, they were still into Thursday's routes, Thursday from last week. They were catching up, and then the rain came down and the bags got really wet, and I'm pretty sure today didn't help. So they're still delayed. Our apologies. In terms of our census, I know I like to update you. We are now at 63.9% for the city, which is great. We know that we were at 67% in 2010, so we're still pushing. Our staff has done 6,800 census calls. So good stuff still going on with the census. I know someone mentioned the committee of the whole, and that's going to be tremendously important. So that's what I've got. Thank you.
I think I've got Councilmember Wood has a question for the mayor who just canceled all our fun for the next 4 months.
Thank you, President Spatafor. This afternoon, we received an email from a constituent who lives in the downtown area that received a parking ticket. And their concern was that they have the stay-at-home order, and that we are ticketing when they're required to stay at home. So they're not going to work, not moving their car. And I did tell them that they needed to reach out to your office and speak with Mark Lawrence on that. But I didn't know whether you had any comments on that at all or not.
But the question is, where are they parking normally? If somebody, we're not responsible for providing parking for everybody. We do have parking garages where people can park, so they can get a parking pass in any of our garages if they live in the downtown. I don't know where they park their car overnight, or again, I don't know about it, but you got to find parking for your car if you have a car and if it means it's in a garage or you can't park it in a spot that's a 2-hour limited spot. It's ordinance. You know, someone can't park that, and our folks can assist with finding spots in parking garages, or the person can find a spot in a private lot, and we can work with them. But we have been very clear that you can't violate the ordinance, and we are continuing parking enforcement. So I know our parking office heard from this individual, and Mark can help him or her to navigate how to get paid parking through the city, or where parking is allowed during the day. That's 8 hours or what the options are.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure that there was a connection that was made there with the person, and I do agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. That concludes Mayor's comments, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, then we are to public comment on legislative matters. We do not have any public hearings tonight. So again, that is resolutions for action, which does include the budget, among other items, and the 2 ordinances as well. So raise your hand, and President Spatafor will call on you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. First up is Cheryl Landgraf. Cheryl, I'm going to unmute you. You're unmuted. If you want to turn on your camera, you can. If not, your 3 minutes begins now.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Cheryl Landgraf, and I am co-owner of FTZ Laboratories, along with my husband, Jeff Landgraf. We are seeking a conditional rezoning of 3440 Northeast Street from F District to G2 to start a self-funded marijuana safety compliance facility. A safety compliance facility is a laboratory which ensures marijuana sold to provisioning centers is safe for human consumption. Safety compliance facilities are a fee-for-service business. We will not be open to the public and are statutorily prohibited from selling marijuana. As you're aware, the F zoning district could allow, among other things, 24/7 fast food restaurants. Our facility will have little to no impact regarding traffic. We'll have little to no traffic. It will not negatively impact the surrounding area, and has been recommended for approval by both the zoning administrator as well as the planning board. This property is in the suburban corridor, and our application is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, specifically on page 60, quote, in addition to retail and automobile-oriented uses, higher density residential, office, research, and light industrial should be encouraged on suburban commercial corridors. Per the city's zoning administrator, safety compliance facilities qualify as light industrial. Also, according to the zoning administrator, quote, since the property to the west is already zoned G2, rezoning the subject property to the G2 district would not be considered a spot zone, even though the sites are located on opposite sides of the street. We have reached out to our commercial and residential neighbors on multiple occasions to get their feedback, and to date, we have received only support. And although this should have no impact on a rezoning decision, there are currently no licensed safety compliance facilities in the city of Lansing. Additionally, I can find no evidence this property has generated revenue for the city other than property taxes since at least 1996. During these very, very strange times we find ourselves in, we certainly hope that with your help, we can move forward and open our new business in the city of Lansing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Landgraf. Next up is Jessica Bibby. You're unmuted, and if no, you're not. Now you are. If you wish to turn on your camera, you may. If not, otherwise, you have 3 minutes.
Hi there. My name is Jessica Bibby, and I just wanted to thank the mayor and the council for your commitment to supporting the arts in Lansing. As a creative who moved to Lansing to work in the arts, I continue to find ways to engage in other creative opportunities here, whether it's socially or in volunteering. And that makes Lansing a great place to be. So I just want you to know that there's great value in community supported and city sponsored arts that attracts creatives. One of my roles is a volunteer coordinator and producer at the Capital City Film Festival. And, you know, the talent retention that extends from having a vibrant creative community, you know, job creation, placemaking. One of the reasons I continue, you know, to build a life here in Lansing. So I just wanted to thank you all for your commitment.
Thank you very much. Looking over here, that is all I see for public comment.
Okay. Then we are to resolutions for action. And we have by the committee of the whole, the first one is the polling place relocation.
Councilmember Hussein.
Sure. So this is, this resolution pertains to two polling places and their temporary relocation. These are Ward 3 Precinct 24, as well as Ward 3 Precinct 25. Both precincts currently vote at Atwood School, which is located
Vice President Hussein, I'm going to pause you just there. A member of the public did raise their hands, I think, during our transition, and in the interest of as much transparency as possible, we will allow Stephanie Vasco your 3 minutes. Stephanie, you are unmuted, and your 3 minutes begins now if you're ready.
Like Jessica, I wanted to also reiterate my desire to see Lansing continue to fund the arts and my gratefulness for the ways in which the city has chosen to do that. As a young professional who works at MSU and who's also an artist, I choose to make downtown Lansing my home, but I choose to stay in Lansing because of the support of arts in this city. I've been fortunate enough to work with arts organizations in the city and have had the privilege to serve on the Mayor's Arts and Culture Commission. The events, the supports for artists, the commitment to public art, all of these things are wonderful. But the thing that keeps me staying in Lansing is the community with other artists that's truly made Lansing feel like my home. And I really would like to urge, when we have considerations of the budget tonight, to not cut support for the arts.
Thank you very much. Vice President Hussein, let's move on to the First Amendment, or the first resolution. Sorry about that.
Okay, so I'll kind of pick up where I left off. Again, both precincts that will be impacted here currently vote at Atwood. Clerk Swope did receive notification from the school district that Atwood will be inaccessible for the August 4th, 2020 primary election due to construction at that site. That indicates investment. We are very appreciative, obviously, of the Lansing School District and what they're doing over at Atwood. That being said, he then took a look at Elfrida Schmidt Southside Community Center, and due to its proximity, its accessibility, and really the amount of on-site parking, determined that that would be an appropriate alternate site. So this resolution would move those two polling places, or I should say those two precincts, to the Elfrida Schmidt Southside Community Center, again for the August 4th, 2020 primary election only. And as President Spatafor indicated in Committee of the Whole, the reason why we took a look at this in Committee of the Whole and are vetting final approval as part of council proceedings is that this would give Clerk Swope an appropriate amount of time, I should say, to notice the impacted individuals. So with that said, I would move the resolution.
Thank you. The resolution before us has been moved by Councilmember Hussein. Is there any discussion on this besides what Councilmember Hussein has said? Very good. If the clerk would please call the roll.
On adoption of the resolution, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. And our next item is SLU 3-2020, setting the public hearing.
Sure. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we have before us is we're saying a resolution to set the public hearing in consideration of a special land use 3-2020 for Lansing Community College. This is to do renovations of the LCC Gannon parking ramp, excuse me. Lansing Community College had forwarded a proposal to renovate the Gannon parking ramp, the three-level construction of a new three-level parking ramp at 610 North Capitol Avenue, and also construct a parking ramp across the street from the City of Lansing's parking ramp. They went out and, because of public comment and comment back to them, I've decided not to construct a ramp across the street from the City of Lansing's ramp, but to construct the Gannon ramp from 3 levels to 5 levels. So the setting of the public hearing, this resolution would set the public hearing for this special land use for June 8th. And with that, I move the resolution.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Spitzley. Now we are just setting the public hearing. Councilmember
Right.
Wood, I see you have your hand up, but Chris Kersey from LCC is on if Chris would like to make any kind of clarification, or I'm sorry, statement regarding this issue. But right now we'll move to Councilmember Wood.
Thank you. This is a question for Jim. Census went through, my understanding, the planning board. It went through without these additional levels on there. Will that need to have, go back to the planning board to be reviewed? And if so, it would be my understanding that they could do it with, they could hold a special meeting and do it and be able to still meet the deadline that we have.
Mr. Smirka. Oh, you're still muted. Hold on, Jim. Jim, hold on just a second. Okay, Mr. Smirka, go ahead.
Clearly, the SLU process requires a public hearing both at the Planning Commission level and the City Council level. I'm going to have to look at that record to see exactly what was noticed up,
Okay.
determine whether that hearing, public hearings get held and get modified from original plan. So let me take a look at what actually was before, before the board and before the public at that time. Let me reserve a comment on that. So you're just setting a public hearing right here.
Yes, we're just setting
Right.
a public hearing.
I will look at it.
And President Spatafor, I don't think that stops us in the process, but if there is a determination that there needs to be something done on the planning board level, I know that in the past, what we've been able to do is to continue to move through the process, that by the time we vote, we have the recommendation by the planning board.
Yes, metaphor. Is Greg Venker on? Because I think he was at, perhaps they can add some.
He is on, yes. Mr. Venker, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that at this point, LCC is essentially withdrawing their zoning application, the application for rezone, which is what they had put in on the 300 North Capitol block. But they're proceeding with the SLU request for the Gannon garage or ramp. Because of the way the SLUs are requested and because of the actual zoning of that parcel of property where the Gannon ramp is, it does not need to go back through the planning board. The request to the planning board for the SLU was specifically to have a ramp at all, which they already do have. And they're doing that for fundamental and expanded transparency, which kudos them. So because they're not actually changing that piece of it, even if they do make that ramp bigger or different, the request for the SLU is just, can we still have this ramp here? And we've even been very transparent with them saying, you technically don't have to ask us for this SLU because it's accessory to your primary use on that parcel. But they want to, and we applaud that, frankly. They want the public to be involved. And I mean, in full transparency, planning board and zoning administrator have said that they're recommending this. The zoning application on the 300 North Capitol parcel, that would be a different matter if they were going to try to change that, because the zoning application process is fairly rigid and there are strict timelines on that. But it's my understanding they have of their own volition withdrawn that at this point. So that's not a problem.
Thanks, Greg, for the facts.
Sure.
Glad you were there.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Happy to help.
Thank you for the clarification. Next item, I'm sorry, no, we have to actually deal with this item.
We need to vote on this.
My mind is on dinner. I see no further discussion unless, Carol, I see your hand is up, but I think that's just a remnant. Okay, you're done. Okay. Mr. Clerk, if you could please call the roll.
On adoption of the resolution to set the public hearing, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson is still not with us. Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yep.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The resolution is adopted, and that takes us to the Fund 1 budget.
All right, so before us is a motion to approve the City of Lansing fiscal year 2021 budget, and that motion for that resolution, I think we have to divide the question first. All right, so the first item, we're going to move to divide the question into three separate parts: the economic development and planning budget, the HRCS budget, and then the remainder of the budget. And that motion has been made. Mr. Smirker, you're correcting me. What's up? You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Just for the record, because you're in a city council meeting now, to report that there have been recusals for these different pieces. So the charter's been complied with in the voting, just so it's on the record of the city council.
Very good. So for the record, in committee of whole, the budget was divided into four pieces: the economic development and planning budget, with Councilmember Spitzley recusing herself; the HRCS budget, with Councilmember Wood recusing herself; the 54A District Court budget, with Councilmember Jackson recusing himself; and then the final budget was no one recused themselves on. So, Mr. Smirka, Mr. Jackson is not here. Do we need to still divide the question into the four pieces, or can we roll the courts back into the budget?
Well, you can't vote on it. Yes, you could roll that back in.
Okay. So I'm going to ask for a motion to divide the question into three parts: the economic development planning budget, the HRCS budget, and the remainder of the budget. Moved by Councilmember Hussein. All right.
I was just going to say, beautifully done and so moved.
Thank you. All right. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could please call the roll on the division of the question.
Okay, on the division, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
And I believe Councilmember is here, so 7 yeas, 0 nays. The division has been approved.
Very good. The motion before us first is going to be the adoption of the economic development and planning budget, moved by Councilmember Hussein. And I will recognize.
Okay, so moved. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I will recognize Councilmember Spitzley for a motion to recuse herself, or a request to recuse herself on the EDP budget.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would request recusal since the firm that I work for could potentially be in line for economic incentives throughout the city.
Very good. Thank you. The motion, the request has been made that the council entertain a motion to recuse Councilmember Spitzley from the economic development and planning budget. Councilmember Hussein.
Would move for the recusal of Councilwoman Spitzley from the ED&P budget.
Thank you. No further discussion. Would the clerk please call the roll?
On the recusal, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson is absent. Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley. Actually, you don't vote on that. Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The recusal is approved.
Thank you. The next item before us is a motion to adopt the HRCS budget. Councilmember Hussein.
Do you want to vote on the EDP budget?
No, we don't have to do that. So we'll go back and do that. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
On adoption of the Economic and Development EDP budget, Councilmember Betts,
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar. Was that, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It was a yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Garza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson is absent, Councilmember Spatafor,
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley is recused, and Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
That is 6 yeas, 0 nays. That budget is adopted.
All right. Now can I go to the next one, Mr. Clerk? Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
please.
All right. The next item before us is the adoption of the HRCS budget. Councilmember Hussein.
I would move the adoption of the HRCS fiscal year 2021 budget.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussein. And I now turn to Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, President Spatafor. At this time, I would ask for a motion to recuse myself. I'm an executive director who receives funds from the 1.25% of the human HRCS budget.
Thank you. It has been requested that the council entertain a motion to recuse Councilmember Wood from the HRCS budget. The motion, Councilmember Hussein.
So moved.
Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to recuse Councilmember Wood from the HRCS budget? He's either very concentrated or frozen.
Uh-oh.
There he goes. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll on the recusal of Councilmember Wood from the HRCS budget?
He's gone again.
He's back. But you're muted,
Yeah,
though.
Sorry about that. Okay. Are we on the Wood recusal?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Betts,
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar, Councilmember Garza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein,
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor,
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Councilmember Wood is recused from voting on the HRCS budget.
Okay, the motion now before us is the adoption of the HRCS budget. Seeing no further discussion, would the clerk please call the roll?
Okay, and there wasn't another recusal on this budget?
No, not this year.
Okay. All right, on adoption of the HRCS budget, Councilmember Betts,
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar, Councilmember Garza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson is absent, Councilmember Spatafor,
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The HRCS portion of the budget is adopted.
All right, and the final motion before us would be the adoption of the remainder of the fiscal year 21 budget. Councilmember Hussein.
Sure. So I would move the remainder of the City of Lansing fiscal year 2021 budget.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Hussein. I will just quickly summarize that we went through an exhaustive process over the last several weeks, mostly on Zoom. And I appreciate all of the work that went in from the administration standpoint, from the council standpoint. You all put in a lot of time, a lot of screen time, a lot of energy, taking input on this budget. A lot of thought went into the final budget product. As I've said 100 times, if I've said it once, and I think we've all said some version of it, the budget we're adopting today is our best estimates based on revenue projections and the reality of what the COVID-19 economic shutdown has done to our economy here in the city of Lansing, state of Michigan, and the United States. So we fully anticipate to continue to monitor revenues, to continue to monitor expenditures, to keep looking to creative solutions such as a workshare type program or other programs to help address those shortfalls in revenue and overages and expenditures should they become necessary. This is not the budget we thought we would be adopting in February when it was presented to us, but it is the budget that is before us now, and we will continue to monitor it and make those changes. In the committee of the whole, several amendments were made to the COVID-19 budget that the mayor presented last week. First of which was a $11,000 reduction to the city council budget, where all of the city council member general expense account were reduced by the amount of $500, leaving the ward members at $1,000 per year and the at-large members at $1,500 per year. Additionally, we reduced our contractual temporary help by $5,000, zeroing out that budget line item, given the fact that we have just hired an administrative assistant who joined us last week. We also reduced our community funding by $2,000, recognizing that many of the events we traditionally support have been canceled or will not take place this year. The neighborhood and citizen engagement budget was reduced by $15,000 in the temporary help line item and $20,000 in the neighborhood grant program, as well as the Office of Financial Empowerment saw a $10,000 reduction in their temporary helpline item. The Economic Development and Planning Administration budget was reduced by $2,000 in their miscellaneous operating budget, and 2 building rentals from code compliance and planning were reduced $20,000 respectively. The Human Resources Department saw a $13,317 reduction in the Employee Recognition Program and a $25,000 reduction in the LHOPE Residency Incentive Program. The arts, the remainder of the cuts came from the temporary help line items. The mayor's temporary help line item was reduced by $20,000. The city clerk's temporary help line item was reduced by $10,000. And the law department's temporary help line item was reduced by $10,000. We have also, the council will possibly entertain resolutions to the extent that they are legal for a pay reduction for city council members. I think that about, in our budget policies, we saw the continuation of most of our policies with changes to the environmental stewardship line item, the vacancy factor and the unfunded positions line item, the general fund reserve policy line, and then the elimination of the chief strategy officer proposal because that position has been filled. So with that, I will open it up to Councilmember Wood and others who may have comments or questions.
Thank you, President Spatafor. The one item that I would like to ask that the mayor really consider as we move forward has to do with the equipment for the fire department. I'm not sure whether I'm causing the echo or somebody else is, but is the equipment that's needed for the fire department. I know the likelihood is we're going to have reduced revenues, not increased revenues. But if we could look at possibly a debt service for a bond that we might be able to purchase those. I know in talking with members of the fire department, the concern is, again, we have 10 ambulances. We're looking at 8 pieces of equipment and no backups. And so I think it would be, advantageous for us as a community if there is something that we can do in the future to try to look at that would be beneficial. I'm not at this point looking at moving any money, but I think it is something that I know you understand the importance of, as well as the community. Again, I want to thank everybody for, as President Spatafor and Vice President Hussein said, that worked on the budget. This has been unusual, not having some of the discussions that we've had. We missed having union leaders in, and I, regret the fact that we weren't able to do that. I know that there was plans to do that, but just as there were plans to have neighborhood engagement out there, and we weren't able to do that. So as this continues to move down the line, because as been indicated by the mayor as well as a number of council members, we realize that this isn't the first time or the last time we'll be looking at this budget, that we will continue to look at it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. And I do not see other hands. So with that, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll on the final passage of the City of Lansing fiscal year 2021 budget.
Okay, on adopting the budget resolution, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson is absent. Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The budget resolution is adopted.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Moving on.
Okay, that takes us to ordinances for passage by the Committee of the Whole. We have an ordinance of the City of Lansing, Michigan to amend section 260.05 of the Lansing Codified Ordinances to allow for the Lansing Housing Commission to own and transact real property in its own name, and remove certain approvals by the city as to selection and compensation of officers and employees of the commission, and amend section 260.07 of the Lansing Codified Ordinances to clarify insurance requirements and remove certain approvals by the city related to the commission's annual audit. The ordinance is read a second time by its title and is on the order of immediate passage.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilmember Spitzley, where'd you go? There you are.
I don't think I need to say any more about that. We did have a public hearing on May 11th, and there were no adverse comments, no comments at all. So with that, I move the ordinance for passage.
Thank you. The motion before us is to pass the ordinance. So if the clerk, I'm sorry, Councilmember Wood, I almost skipped over you there.
No, not a problem. My quick question to the city attorney, and that is, in making this revision, is there any costs that are incurred for putting the property in the Housing Commission's name? They will be incumbent upon taking those costs on, not the city. Am I correct?
My lip reading skills say he says that you are correct, but let me unmute him and call him back. There you are, Mr.
Here now. We'll obviously be working with their council in transferring the property. There's going to have to be a division if there are any taxes or assessments out there, but we'll work with them. No other costs that I see.
But there's no cost to us, the city. The Housing Commission will take on those costs.
That's our position. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion on this item, we are going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
On adoption of the ordinance, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The ordinance is adopted.
Councilmember Spitzley, would you like immediate effect?
Move for immediate effect.
All right. Immediate effect has been requested. Will the clerk please call the roll on immediate effect?
On immediate effects, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Immediate effect is ordered. And
Thank you. Sorry.
To the next ordinance, we have an ordinance of the City of Lansing, Michigan, providing for the rezoning of a parcel of real property located in the City of Lansing, Michigan, and for the revision of the district maps adopted by Section 1246.02 of the Code of Ordinances, Z9 2019 3440 Northeast Street. A conditional rezoning from F Commercial District to G2 Wholesale District is read a second time by its title. The ordinance was reported from the Committee of the Whole and is on the order of immediate passage.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilmember Spitzley, anything to add to that besides the motion?
Nope. Thank you, Mr. President. No motion, no, nothing to add other than there was two public hearings, one on April 27th, and then the applicants were not present during that public hearing, and then another one on, one on March 16th, 2020, and the applicants were not present, and then another one on March 27th, and the applicants were present. Based on that, I would make a motion to pass the ordinance.
All right, the motion before us is the passage of Z92019. Any further discussion before we call a roll? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
No.
Councilmember Hussein.
No.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
No.
4 yeas, 3 nays. The ordinance is not adopted.
Okay.
And we are to speaker registration for public comment on city government related matters. So once again, if you can virtually or electronically raise your hands, we'll be calling on you in a few minutes. And in the meantime, we are to reports of city officers, boards, and commissions.
All right, what I need is a motion that all items be considered as being read in full and that the proper referrals be made by the president. Vice President Hussein.
You're doing all my work tonight, man. I appreciate you. So moved.
Thank you very much. Motion before us is what I just said it was. The clerk, please call the roll.
On the referrals, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. We can do the referrals. We have a letter from the city clerk with minutes of boards, commissions, and authority.
Placed on file.
And a letter from the mayor regarding readopting the codified ordinances of the city of Lansing.
The Committee of the Whole.
And we are to motion of excused absence.
I will entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Jackson from the meeting. Councilmember Hussein.
I would move for the excusal, of Councilman Brian Jackson.
All right, would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to excuse Councilmember Jackson?
On the motion to excuse Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is adopted to excuse Councilmember Jackson, and that takes us to remarks by council members.
Is there anybody wishing to make remarks? Please raise your hands. Looks like we're all set, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, remarks by the mayor.
I just want to thank you all. This is my third budget. Certainly the weirdest budget, but a third of them I guess are weird, but better than Councilman Betts, who's had 100% weird budgets. This is definitely the strangest one, but having worked for the Municipal League, I know this is very irregular, but I think I've spoken to just about each and every one of you as we've gone through this process. I know you all want this to be very inclusive of all of us and the public, and I know you all work very hard. for the citizens of Lansing to make sure we get this right now and moving into the future. So I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the job that we're all doing together for the city of Lansing. I greatly appreciate Shelby and Jake, Shelby Freyer and Jake Brower, who also first budget, very strange first budget for them, and all of our department heads and all of our employees, everyone who's doing such hard work for the city. So I do want to thank you all, and hope we'll all take a small break before our first budget amendment. But thank you, everybody. I also wanted to mention that the massive list of event cancellations that I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to read them all again, but they are on our website. We put out a press release, so there's a list in the press release, so anybody can go check that out and see. But I would recommend not looking at the Lansing Living Guide, because that's clearly very wrong, at least for the rest of this month. But that is on our website for anyone who wants. But thank you all. Appreciate you. Appreciate working with all of you, and we'll get through this all together.
Thank you. Now, please don't veto anything. We don't want another meeting before June 8th. I do have two council members that raised their hands. I assume, is this response to the mayor or is this council member comments?
Comment, but we can skip me if I'm too late.
We might. I mean, we got till whenever. Go ahead, Councilmember Betts.
I just wanted to say I just received news that LCC just elected their new president, Dr. Steve Knight, I believe is the name. I just wanted to say, or not Knight, Steve Robinson. I just want to say congratulations to LCC. I know that the board has been working on that for a few months now, and it's exciting that now there's obviously a change of guard is sad in some ways, but I'm excited to see what LCC does with their future. And I think that we should all be proud of them for making that tough decision tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Betts. Councilmember Dunbar.
Thank you. I guess this is kind of playing off the mayor's remarks because he's talking about events that were canceled. One thing that is not canceled is the South Lansing Farmers Market. And I will put that out there because it's going to open in two to some weeks. But it's going to look different. And it's going to be like, Allen's Neighborhood Market has been open year round, but there's going to be hand washing stations and sanitizer and masks and social distancing and a whole bunch of changes. But this is a time right now when it's really important supporting local food systems and really looking at the carbon footprint of where your food comes from. And so it is a great opportunity to support local growers and keep money here in the economy. And it starts on June 4th. And it is still at St. Casimir. So 800 West Barnes, 3 to 7. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Okay, we are to public comment on city government related matters, and I see one hand, and that is Cheryl Landgraf. So you will have 3 minutes for your public comment. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Yes.
Hi, I apologize. I might have jumped the gun on raising my hand. However, as I know you cannot respond to my question, I'm curious why a 4-3 vote would be a denial of passage. So I can take that up at a later time, but that seemed like the rezoning request should have been approved with a 4-3 vote. So I will take it up in a email correspondence later, unless you would like to respond to that.
We'll let the clerk respond to that. Thank you, Ms. Landgraf.
Thank you.
Our city charter very clearly requires 5 votes of council to pass any action. Minimum. So the fact that one council member is absent does not reduce the number of affirmative votes required to take an action.
Thank you.
That is it for public comment. With that, we are adjourned.